Hello everyone, my name is Margarita and I am a student of Ternopil National Technical University of Ivan Pulioi. This project presents a software system designed to identify diffusion parameters in microporous materials such as cellulites. The developed system applies mathematical models to process experimental data, solve inverse diffusion problems, and validate results through direct modeling. Introduction. So, the challenge in studying these materials lies in the difficulty of directly measuring diffusion coefficients from experimental data. To address this, we propose a computational approach that applies mathematical models and numerical simulation to extract key diffusion parameters. The goal of this work is to develop a software system that automates the identification of diffusion coefficients, providing a reliable tool for researchers working with microporous materials. Problem statement is the lack of direct experimental access to diffusion parameters requires an alternative approach to extract meaningful results from available data. The proposed solution is a software system that processes experimental measurements and applies inverse mathematical models to determine the diffusion coefficients governing mass transfer in these materials. Mathematical model of diffusion. In this study describes diffusion as a process with two parts, one happening in the main part of the crystal and the other inside the tiny pores. Each part has its own diffusion rate, d inter for the bulk material and d intra for the micropores. The model assumes a cylindrical shape with micropores represented as small spherical cavities inside the materials, as you can see in the figure number 3. The main exploitation uses partial differential equation to describe how the concentration of substances changes over time. The main equations are covered into three-dimensional grid, making it possible to calculate diffusion parameters numerically. The method rapidly adjusts the diffusion coefficients at each point on the grid to reduce the difference between the calculated and experimental concentration values. This approach keeps the solution accurate and stable while ensuring different efficient calculation. On the figure number 4, you can see three-dimensional grid and the difference scheme implemented on it. On this slide, you can see explanation the finite difference method used to model diffusion on a three-dimensional grid, as you see earlier. The space is divided into nodes, K, S, M, each representing a point in space and time. The diffusion coefficients d1 and d2 are found by solving equations that describe concentration changes at time in different points. This method converts the diffusion problem into a simpler algebraic system with final formulas for dO and d1, showing how these coefficients are calculated from concentration values and their changes in space. The software system was built in Wolfram Mathematica 12. It has two main parts. The first part finds diffusion coefficients using experimental data, while second simulates mass transfer based on these values. The system is modular, so it allows users to change inputs, visualize results, and compare calculations with experiments. The software system works with experimental data in format like .dat, .txt, and .doc, automatically converting them for modeling. Users input sample parameters and the system applies a numerical model to calculate diffusion coefficients. Built-in visualization tool help compare experimental and computed diffusion curves for better result interpretation. Result and model validation you can see on a figure number 9. So, this software system is validated by comparing computed diffusion coefficients with experimental concentration profiles. The direct diffusion model simulates mass transfer using identified parameters, and the results are checked against experimental data. A strong correlation between computed and measured values confirms the accuracy of the numerical method. About conclusion of this work, this research presents a computational framework for identifying diffusion parameters in microporous samples. The developed software system integrates mathematical modeling and numerical methods to extract diffusion coefficients from experimental data. By solving the inverse diffusion problem, the system provides a reliable means of analyzing mass transfer in satellites and similar materials. The validation process confirms that the computed diffusion coefficients accurately represented real experimental conditions. And thank you for your attention.